I'm in general supposed to be here to be working on some of the fauna material from the West End, which is Peter Beale's excavation. They've been digging for a season and a half now, well, getting towards the end of their second season. They haven't found all that much in the way of decent, secure contexts that are worth looking at. So for most of the last season and a half, I've been working on whatever needs doing from the other areas, just as part of the lab team. Now I've actually just started getting through some material of questionable utility, you might say, from over there. Stuff that we thought was worth at least having a look at to see what's in there.
And is these the things that you got on the table?
These are the ones. I'm doing what we call an assessment, which is the same thing Sheila's been doing, which is rather than recording every bone individually, just taking a unit, getting all the bags, spreading it out on the table, sorting it into a set pattern of different bone types, and then just having a good look at it, deciding, noting kind of the key points, what's there, what isn't there, even more importantly, and then writing a few paragraphs describing, in the context of what the excavators have said about it, what bones we've got feeds back into that, what use it might be of to us later on, what it might tell the excavators about whether their hypotheses about the meaning of the deposit are realistic. In this case, this is a pit which is cut into chalcolithic deposits up in their main trench, Trench 5 that's called. They say the pottery from it has been mainly chalcolithic, or I don't think possibly even entirely. It's quite disturbed by a lot of rodent burrows anyway. But they wanted it to be a chalcolithic pit. Rissa had a look at it while they were still excavating it, and said it looked to her very much like the Hellenistic pit she'd seen up in TP area, I think, a few years ago. So the question to be asked when looking at this is, could it be a secure chalcolithic pit, or are we really just dealing with something later which has been cut into the chalcolithic? From looking at this stuff, as you can see, it's all over the place. Some's this colour in lovely condition, some's this colour and falling apart and gnawed, and there's everything in between.
What about the type of animal? Do you know what they are?
Yeah, there's a whole range of different stuff here. We've got a bit of pig, ovicaprids, which sheep or goats.
Could you point the pig again? I missed it.
It's a juvenile pig. It's quite small though.
Wait a minute, I see. Okay, that's the pig, yeah?
Probably a domestic one, which doesn't match up with what we've got on the east mound at least, but this, by the look of it, considering what we know about the pit and looking at the condition of this, the fact that despite being juvenile and very porous, it's still intact, I reckon that's probably late Hellenistic or Byzantine, or cut in later on anyway.
Oh, I see, so it's not that old.
From looking at this stuff, I think Rissa was right. This is a late pit, which some of these bones will probably be chalcolithic, but they'll just have been reworked into it. It won't be their primary context. It looks mixed. It looks like it's a pretty useless context, to be honest.
And of all these things that you've been looking at, which is the one that is the most interesting for you?
Most interesting, I think. That's a tough question. I never like that question. I suppose I like to get a nice big midden unit where you know exactly where it's coming from, you've got it well defined, you're sure that it isn't, that it hasn't got later intrusions, no animal burrows, nice big pieces, range of species, that kind of thing, to be honest. Something juicy you can really get your teeth into.
But so far, this season, what have you found which is...
Well, actually I had a unit which met many of those criteria just last week, which was nice, which is...
and what was it?
It was from over in the steam shelter. It had unfortunately been excavated a little more vigorously than we might have liked, so there were a lot of recent breaks which we had to try and glue things back together again. It had come out just as a kind of slightly liddeny deposit. It was noted there were lots of bones in it, but that was about it. But the more we looked at it, the more it seemed there were not just the usual species, but also quite a lot of equid, which we have equid. It's not rare, but it's certainly not, you don't normally find that much in any particular context. There seemed to be quite a lot of bits of scapulae, which could be cow scapulae, which could be reconstructed into quite large chunks on the recent breaks. So they were big before some of the package. And we quite often find scapulae in special deposits. So was quite nice to put that together and think. I mean, also quite depressing to think there may have been a special deposit here, possibly, that didn't get noticed.
And now,
Possibly.
let me ask you a question which is not scientific at all. If you had been in this place 9,000 years ago, what would you have done? What would be your job, you think?
I would imagine everything that needed doing, pretty much.
Handyman.
I suppose it depends who you ask, how much specialism you envisage there. But
Well, just try to imagine, 9,000 years ago, with very little skills, or maybe with lots of skills.
I should imagine I'd have liked to be getting out of the village on a fairly regular basis. So,
Yeah. Can you tell me what you're doing?
This is a unit that comes from a bin inside a burned house that was found 2005, dug a couple of years ago. And this is a collection actually of shattered baby pig jaws. And as you can see, many of them are heavily burned. And as a matter of fact, this is only a portion of the pieces. I've counted probably on the order of 150 tiny shattered fragments of those pieces. And what I'm trying to do now is record the larger pieces, see what they tell me about the age of the animals, see how many animals there are, which is very difficult to tell in this particular case of positive implosion, by looking at their teeth, making sure that I've managed to clear out all of the non-pig mandible portions of the deposit. It's not that these were the only thing in the deposit by a long shot, it's just that I've recorded the things that are looking more like noise or mixed deposits. And there are a few other special things that turned up here. This is, for instance, a rather broken up, burned piece of deer antler. So I'm just recording all of these to make sure that we have a good feeling for what people might have put in these household bins. This is not the sort of thing that one would normally expect to find. We actually don't have very many pigs here. Surprisingly few if the reconstruction of the environment that's been used so far is in fact correct. And there were 2 adult pig mandibles that were found in the bins in this particular house as well. So this is quite an unusual deposit, and so it's very interesting.
So let me ask you now one of my questions. If you had been here 9,000 years ago, have you any idea what you would be doing?
Do you
Can
mean
you
in
imagine
terms of
yourself?
specialty, or how I would spend my days just as a person on site? Or
Yeah, I mean just a human being here 9,000 years
on
ago.
site?
But don't think scientifically, just think emotionally.
I suppose I would have spent a lot of time just trying to keep body and soul together, as it were. Making sure the food got produced, making sure it got processed, making sure there was enough of it to last the year out, trying to make sure that we had enough fuel to keep the house warm.
Would you have lots and lots of children?
Surviving children, or children at all?
Well, trying to have lots of them, yeah?
I suppose that I would have had however many came naturally. It's not like I anticipate huge amounts of birth control or anything else like that. But I'm not particularly sure that any astonishing number of them would have survived. So I can't say that I picture a massive brood running around, no.
Okay, and then one last thing. When you work, what do you think?
Depends on what stage of the work you're talking about. During analysis of the bones, it is sort of like doing a jigsaw puzzle in some ways. So one's mind can drift if it's the relatively straightforward stuff, or one can concentrate just on the puzzle in front of one. When one is taking that data back and contemplating it, that's when I think things get really intellectually interesting in terms of trying to picture what these things would have meant to people's lives in a completely alien world. So
There's a mixture of thoughts, yeah?
one of the great joys of this job, as far as I'm concerned, of this lifestyle, is that one does not in fact do the same thing all of the time. And naturally one does not think the same thing at all stages of that process. So there's a really wide range of what one experiences, both emotionally and intellectually and physically.
Great, thank you very much.